The small aircraft banks gently to the left, and through your window, the world transforms. What began as distant suggestions of white on the horizon has become something immediate and overwhelming. The southern Alps stretching across your entire field of vision, peak after peak, catching the afternoon light in ways that make them seem lit from within. You shift in your seat, pressing closer to the window. The twin-engine plane carries only 20 passengers, and the cabin feels intimate, almost cozy, with its worn fabric seats and the faint smell of aviation fuel mixing with someone's coffee from the terminal. But none of that matters now. What matters is what's outside. This landscape that seems too dramatic to be real. Yet here it is, solid and ancient beneath the aircraft's shadow. The pilot's voice comes through the speakers, unhurried and warm with the particular accent of the South Island, those vowels that roll like the landscapes they describe. If you look out the right side, you'll see Lake Wakatipu beginning now. That's the third longest lake in New Zealand, shaped like a lightning bolt, or, as the Maori say, like a giant sleeping on its side. And there it is. Water of such deep blue-green that your mind struggles to find a comparison. Not turquoise exactly, not jade, but something between and beyond both. The colour that comes from glacial flour, rock ground fine as dust by ancient ice, and suspended in meltwater. The lake curves through the valleys like a great serpent, nearly 80 kilometres long, pressed between mountains that rise straight from its shores. The surface catches the light in patterns that shift and change as the plane moves, sometimes mirror bright, sometimes dark as polished stone. Your breathing has changed without your noticing it. The quick, shallow rhythms of airports and departures have given way to something deeper, slower. Perhaps it's the altitude, or perhaps it's simply what happens when you're confronted with a landscape where time moves differently. Mountains that rose from the seafloor 300 million years ago. Valleys carved by ice ages that ended just yesterday in geological terms. Either way, you find yourself matching the unhurried pace of this place, even while still in the air above it. The plane descends gradually, and details emerge from what was once just shape and colour. You can see the texture of the mountainsides now. Dark rock faces where the snow can't cling, forests that look soft as moss from this height, and everywhere, waterfalls. Thin white lines that you mistook for snow or scratches on the rock reveal themselves as water falling hundreds of meters, born from glaciers and snowmelt, finding their way to the lake below. The Remarkables coming up on your left, the pilot continues, and you see why early surveyors gave them that name. The range stands like a wall, its peaks sharp as broken glass against the sky. The afternoon sun hits them at just the right angle, turning the eastern faces gold, while the western slopes hold on to blue shadow. These mountains are younger than Fiordland's ancient peaks, pushed up from the earth a mere few million years ago, and they still have the raw, jagged energy of geological youth. Below, Queenstown begins to appear, nestled in a bay where the lake makes one of its dramatic turns. The town looks impossibly small against the landscape, its buildings clustered along the waterfront, like a handful of pebbles tossed at the feet of giants. You can see boats leaving white wakes across the lake's surface, and roads that switch back up the hillsides. But they all seem like afterthoughts, human additions to a place that needs no improvement. The aircraft adjusts its approach, and now you're flying parallel to the lake's length. The water is so clear that in places you can see the bottom, even from this height. Shelves of rock dropping away into darkness that speaks of glacial carving, of ice grinding stone into these perfect U-shaped valleys over millennia. The pilot mentions that the lake plunges to over 400 meters deep in places, carved by glaciers during ice ages, when this whole region was buried under frozen rivers of ice. To the west, beyond the immediate mountains, you catch your first glimpse of what lies ahead. Fiordland. Even from here you can sense its difference. Where the remarkables are sharp and definite, Fiordland's peaks seem to fade into distance and mist, layer upon layer of them, blue-grey and mysterious. These are some of the oldest mountains in New Zealand, worn down by ages of rain and wind, covered in forest that has grown undisturbed for millions of years. Tomorrow, you'll drive into those mountains, but for now, they wait on the horizon like a promise or a dream. The plane begins its final descent, and your ears respond with a gentle, rhythmic popping, that familiar sensation of returning to Earth from altitude. The Twin Otter's propellers shift their tone, their steady drone deepening as the pilot adjusts the pitch for landing. It's a sound that becomes almost hypnotic, a mechanical mantra that's carried you across these mountains. Outside, the landscape rises to meet you with unhurried certainty. Individual trees emerge from what was forest texture. Southern beech with their dark, dense crowns, and exotic pines planted decades ago, now towering above the native bush. You can see cars on the roads now, moving slowly along the curves that follow the lake's edge. A boat draws a white line across the blue-green water, its wake spreading in a perfect V that catches the afternoon light. The aircraft encounters the mountain winds, those complex currents that flow through these valleys like invisible rivers. The plane lifts gently, then settles, lifts again, as if being passed from hand to hand by the air itself. It's not alarming, just the mountain's way of reminding you of their presence, their ability to shape everything here, even the wind. Your body rocks slightly with each movement, a gentle cradle motion that's oddly soothing. Through the window, you watch your shadow racing across the landscape below, over water, over forest, over the geometric patterns of Queenstown's streets. The shadow grows larger as you descend, more defined, until you can make out the aircraft's twin-engine shape, skimming across the earth like a great bird coming home to roost. The pilot's voice returns, calm as ever. Final approach into Queenstown, folks. We'll be on the ground in about 3 minutes. The temperature down there is a pleasant 15 degrees, and as you can see, we've got beautiful clear conditions for your arrival. 15 degrees Celsius. Cool enough to need the light jacket you packed in your carry-on. Warm enough that the afternoon sun will feel good on your face. You can see the runway now. That strip of asphalt that seems impossibly small against the scale of everything around it, bordered by grass that glows golden in the slanted light. The landing gear deploys with its reassuring mechanical thunk, felt as much as heard through the aircraft's frame. The propeller sound changes again, engines throttling back, and there's that moment, that perfect, suspended moment, where the ground rushes up and the wheels haven't quite touched, where you're neither flying nor landed, held in the space between. Then contact. The wheels kiss the runway with barely a whisper, and suddenly you're rolling along solid earth, the engines reversing thrust with their characteristic roar that quickly fades to a rumble, then to a purr as the plane slows. Through the window, the Remarkables stand impossibly close, their peaks catching the last of the high-altitude sun, while their bases are already in shadow. As the plane taxis to the terminal, you remain seated, watching this new world rotate slowly past your window. Other passengers are already unbuckling, standing, reaching for bags, but you feel no rush. The propellers wind down with a descending whine that ends in sudden silence, a silence that seems profound after the constant sound of flight. When you finally stand, your legs remember the solid earth even before you've left the plane. The cabin door opens, and the first breath of South Island air flows in. Crisp, clean, carrying the faint scent of snow from the high peaks, even in summer, mixed with aviation fuel and the particular smell of afternoon sun on tarmac. It's air that feels different in your lungs, thinner, cleaner, as if it's traveled through fewer places to reach you. The walk across the tarmac is short but profound. The Remarkables loom to your left, so close you have to tilt your head back to see their peaks. They're not just mountains viewed from here. They're a presence, a weight in the landscape that you feel in your chest. The sound environment has changed completely too. Gone is the enclosed drone of flight, replaced by the spacious quiet of a mountain valley. Wind moving through distant trees, the faint sound of boats on the lake, a bird calling from somewhere you can't see. Inside the terminal, voices echo differently than they would in a larger airport. The space is intimate, wood and glass, designed to frame the views rather than shut them out. You hear New Zealand accents all around you, that particular lift and rhythm that makes even mundane airport announcements sound friendly. Someone laughs at the coffee stand. A child points excitedly at the mountains through the window. These human sounds feel right here, small notes against the vast silence of the landscape. You pause at the rental car desk, where a map of the South Island spreads across the wall. Tomorrow's route is marked in red, the road from Te Anau to Milford Sound, winding through the heart of Fiordland. The woman behind the counter traces it with her finger. One of the most beautiful drives in the world, she says simply, not overselling it because she doesn't need to. Outside again, walking to your car with keys in hand, the late afternoon sun warms your face while the air stays cool. That particular mountain combination that makes you feel perfectly alive, perfectly present. You sit in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine, adjusting mirrors to frame the mountains, looking at that red line on your map that leads into Fiordland's ancient heart. The Remarkables glow gold and pink in the last direct light. Behind them, invisible but somehow felt, those older mountains wait. Patient as they've been for 300 million years, wearing their forests like green velvet, hiding their fiords from casual discovery. Tomorrow, you'll drive into those mountains, following rivers backward to their sources, passing through forests that watched the dinosaurs die. But for now, there's just this moment of arrival completed, this first breath of Fiordland air, this threshold crossed between the world you left and the one you've come to find. The rental car's headlights sweep across the empty parking lot of your Te Anau motel as you load your day pack into the back seat. It's just past 6 in the morning, and the town sleeps under a blanket of mist that rose from the lake during the night. The air carries that particular pre-dawn chill of mountain places, sharp enough to wake you fully, soft enough to feel like a blessing rather than a shock. You've packed simply for this journey: water, a thermos of coffee made in the motel's small kitchen, some fruit and sandwiches wrapped in paper. The drive to Milford Sound and back will take most of the day, but there's no rush. The road itself is the experience, each of its 119 kilometers revealing something new about this landscape, where time moves differently. The engine starts with a gentle purr, and you let it warm while studying the map spread across the passenger seat. State Highway 94, the Milford Road, is marked clearly, one of only 3 roads that penetrate Fiordland's wilderness. Built over decades by Depression-era workers with picks and shovels, expanded slowly through the 1950s, it remains one of the most remarkable engineering achievements in New Zealand. But none of that history is visible in the simple red line on your map. Te Anau fades behind you quickly, its handful of streets giving way to farmland, where sheep graze in fields, still silver with dew. The mist hasn't lifted yet, and you drive through pockets of it that reduce visibility to mere meters, forcing you to slow, to pay attention. Between these cloudy passages, the world appears in fragments. A fence line emerging from white, trees standing like sentinels at the edge of vision, the suggestion of mountains beyond. The road follows the shoreline of Lake Te Anau for a time, though you can barely see the water through the mist. Sometimes a gap opens and you glimpse the lake's surface, perfectly still, holding the ghost images of mountains that you know are there but can't quite see. The whole scene appears as if viewed through morning mist rising from the lake, soft-edged and dreamlike, everything painted in shades of silver and pale blue. Then gradually the mist begins to lift, not disappearing but rising, pulling apart like cotton wool, revealing the landscape layer by layer. First, the near shore of the lake, dark with vegetation. Then the water itself, that same blue-green as Wakatipu, the color of glacial flower suspended in meltwater. So vivid, it seems lit from below. Finally, the far mountains emerge, the Murchison and Kepler ranges standing guard over the lake's western shore. The road turns inland, following the Eglinton Valley north. Here the landscape opens into broad river flats, where the Eglinton River meanders in elaborate loops, taking its time, in no hurry to reach the sea. The grass is golden in the early light, and you can see why farmers tried to settle here once, though the land proved too wet, too prone to flooding, too stubbornly wild to ever fully tame. Red beech forests press close on both sides now, their canopy so dense that the road passes through pools of shadow even as the morning sun climbs higher. These trees are ancient. Some of the larger ones were seedlings when Captain Cook first sailed past Fiordland's coast. Their trunks are massive, covered in moss and lichens that glow green in the filtered light. Through gaps in the trees you catch glimpses of waterfalls beginning their day's work, fed by snow that fell on peaks you can't yet see. A sign appears. Mirror Lakes, 5 kilometers. You've been driving for nearly an hour, covering only 58 kilometers. But distance means something different here. Every turn reveals something worth stopping for, worth considering. You indicate and pull into the small parking area, though yours is the only car. The boardwalk to Mirror Lakes, known as Kakano in Maori, is short, just a few minutes' walk through the forest. Your footsteps echo hollow on the wooden planks, the only sound besides bird calls you can't identify, and the distant whisper of water moving somewhere out of sight. The forest smells of decomposition and growth in equal measure, that particular rainforest scent of life, cycling endlessly through death and rebirth. Then the trees open, and there they are. A series of small lakes, so perfectly still, they seem like windows to another world. The Earl Mountains reflect in the water with such clarity that it takes a moment to understand which way is up. Every detail is doubled, every snow patch, every fold of rock, every wisp of cloud. You stand at the viewing platform, watching this perfect mirror world, and realize you're holding your breath, as if even that might disturb the reflection. A paradise duck calls from somewhere across the water, that distinctive honking that sounds almost like laughter, and ripples spread from where it landed, breaking the mirror into 1,000 fragments before it slowly reforms. You watch this simple magic several times before returning to the car, carrying that image of doubled mountains with you. The road continues north, climbing gradually through forest that changes with each 100 meters of elevation gained. You round a gentle curve and see the sign for Cascade Creek. The pullout is small, just room for a few cars, and you have it to yourself this early in the morning. The moment you open the car door, the sound reaches you. Not the thundering of a large waterfall, but something more intimate, more musical. It's the sound of water finding its way over and around smooth stones. A constant conversation between liquid and solid that's been going on here for millennia. The air is noticeably cooler near the creek, carrying the clean mineral scent of snow melt water, that particular smell that's almost a taste, sharp and pure on the back of your tongue. You walk to the bridge and lean against the wooden railing, its surface worn smooth by countless other hands. Below, Cascade Creek runs so clear it seems like flowing glass. You can count individual stones on the bottom. Grey granite, white quartz, dark schist. Each one rounded perfect by the water's patient work. The morning sun angles through the beech trees, and where it hits the water, the light breaks into brief rainbows that appear and disappear with each ripple. A fantail flits across your vision, its tail spread like a tiny fan as it hunts insects in the spray zone where water meets air. You watch it dance from branch to branch, never still, while the creek continues its steady music beneath. Your breathing has matched itself to the water's rhythm without conscious thought. In with one set of riffles, out with the next. Back in the car, you drive on slowly, letting the road guide you deeper into the mountains. The route follows old pathways, first animal tracks, then Maori trails used by Paunamu traders carrying greenstone to the coast. Finally, this ribbon of asphalt laid down by workers who spent decades opening Fiordland to the world. Each curve is gentle, engineered to work with the landscape rather than against it, and your body sways slightly with each turn, a meditation in motion. The forest changes as you gain altitude, the red beech giving way to silver beech, smaller, more twisted by altitude and weather. Their trunks wrapped in moss that glows green gold where shafts of sun penetrate the canopy. Through gaps in the trees, you catch glimpses of waterfalls beginning their day's work. White ribbons against dark rock. Vertical streams that appear and disappear as the road winds higher. Kia call from the trees, those mountain parrots with their olive-green feathers and shocking orange underwings. Their cries carry across the valley, multiplying in the mountain acoustics until it sounds like a whole parliament of birds discussing your passage. Another sign. The Avenue of the Disappearing Mountain. You've heard about this optical illusion, but nothing quite prepares you for it. As you drive slowly along this stretch, watching the mountain ahead, it seems to sink into the earth, disappearing behind the rising foreground, even though you're on flat road. It's perspective playing tricks, the angle of view combined with the valley's geometry. But knowing the explanation doesn't diminish the effect. The mountain disappears and reappears as you move, a gentle reminder that perception shapes reality as much as truth. The Homer Tunnel entrance appears ahead, like a mouth in the mountain, a dark rectangle cut into sheer rock. This route follows an ancient Maori trail, one of the few passages through these mountains to the Pounamu fields of the coast. You slow as you approach, noting the rough-hewn walls, the way the granite seems to press in from all sides. The air changes immediately as you near the entrance, cooler, damper, carrying the distinctive mineral smell of deep rock and groundwater. This tunnel took nearly 20 years to complete, carved by men working in conditions that would be considered impossible today. The entrance sign warns of possible delays, of the tunnel's single lane requiring traffic management. But this early, you have it to yourself. You enter the darkness. The tunnel is unlined, just raw granite, and your headlights illuminate walls that glisten with groundwater seeping through. It's 1.2 kilometers of slight downward grade, and the temperature drops noticeably. The mountain's heart is cold, even in summer. Water drips from the ceiling, pattering on your windshield, and the sound of your engine echoes strangely in the confined space. It feels like passing through the mountain's body, like being temporarily swallowed. Then, light ahead. Not the harsh artificial lighting of modern tunnels, but actual daylight, growing from a point to a rectangle to a blazing frame of white. You emerge, and the world transforms completely. The Cledau Valley spreads before you, dropping away in a series of sweeping terraces toward the invisible fiord far below. But what strikes you first isn't the view, it's the sound. Water is everywhere. Countless waterfalls cascade down the sheer walls, each one with its own voice. Some whisper, some roar, some chime like bells where they strike ledges on the way down. Their combined music creates a symphony that seems to come from the air itself. The recent rain has awakened every possible watercourse, and the valley walls are alive with water, drawing white lines down dark rock, creating veils of spray that catch the morning light. You pull into the first viewpoint and step out of the car. The air is different here, cooler, damper, carrying the scent of snow even though it's summer. The valley drops nearly 700 meters from where you stand, and the road switchbacks down the face in a series of vertigo-inducing turns. Below, lost in morning shadow, the Cledau River winds toward Milford Sound, still 16 kilometers away, but feeling close now, inevitable. A Kia lands on your car's side mirror, studying its own reflection with the focused attention of a scientist examining data. Its eyes are intelligent, curious, studying you with the confidence of a creature that has never learned to fear humans, whose ancestors watched glaciers retreat from these valleys. When it calls, the sound carries across the valley, multiplying in the mountain acoustics until it becomes a conversation between bird and landscape. You stand perfectly still, sharing this moment with a bird that lives its entire life in these mountains, that knows every updraft, every seasonal change, every hidden valley where snow lingers into summer. The morning is advancing, the sun climbing toward its zenith, and the valley is revealing itself in stages as shadows retreat. You can see the road below, that thin line carved into cliffs, disappearing and reappearing as it descends. Somewhere down there, hidden by the final curves, Milford Sound waits, that deep fjord where mountains rise straight from the sea. But that revelation is still ahead. For now, there's just this moment at the threshold, looking down into a valley that seems to contain all of Fiordland's essence. The water, the stone, the impossible green of forests that thrive on near vertical slopes. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with this rare air, feeling the journey settle into your bones. The road continues its descent before you, each switchback a promise of something new to discover. You return to the car slowly, knowing the best is still to come, carrying the sound of all that falling water with you as you prepare for the final descent to the sea. The viewpoint appears almost unexpectedly, a widening of the road with a low stone wall and just enough space for a few cars. You pull over and switch off the engine. The quiet settles immediate and complete, broken only by the distant voice of waterfalls and the closer whisper of wind through alpine grasses. A bellbird calls from somewhere unseen, its liquid notes floating across the morning air. You step out and walk to the wall, where the land drops away dramatically. The stone is cold under your palms, rough with lichen that's been growing here for centuries. Milford Sound spreads below and before you, not the postcard view from sea level that everyone knows, but something more intimate, seen from above like a secret glimpsed through trees. The fiord is a perfect slice of dark water between vertical walls of rock, its surface so still it could be polished obsidian. Mitre Peak rises from the water's edge, not gradually but immediately, as if the mountain simply decided to exist at that exact spot and pushed straight up from the sea floor. The morning sun warms your shoulders as you settle onto a smooth boulder, one of many scattered here by glaciers. The rock holds the night's cold still, a contrast to the growing warmth of the day. This stone beneath you is ancient. Granite, formed 300 million years ago when this land was part of Gondwana, that vast southern supercontinent. You run your hand across its surface, feeling the coarse crystals of quartz and feldspar that cooled from molten rock when the Earth's crust was young. A tiny skink darts across the stone near your hand, disappearing into a crack. Life, finding its way into every possible space. The wind shifts, bringing the green scent of the forest behind you. That particular smell of damp moss and decomposing leaves that speaks of rain and growth in endless cycles. Below, a tour boat appears at the mouth of the sound. So small from here, it looks like a leaf on dark water. You let your gaze travel across the landscape while your mind travels through time. The Maori knew this place long before any European charts were drawn. They called it Piopiotahi, a single piopio, after the now extinct native thrush that once sang in these forests. But there's an older name too, one that speaks to how this landscape was formed. The story goes that Tuteraki Whanoa, a godly ancestor, carved these fiords with his adze, te hamo. Working from south to north, he perfected his technique with each cut. The southern fiords are rough, irregular, as he learned his craft. But by the time he reached Piopiotahi, his skill had reached its peak. This fiord was his masterpiece. Narrow, deep, perfectly formed. When he finished, he left his adze at the head of the sound, where it became the mountain called Mitre Peak, its shape still resembling the tool that carved these valleys. You can almost see it, the mythic figure working through these mountains, each stroke of his adze creating another valley, another space for the sea to enter. The wind stirs the grass around you, and somewhere a rifleman calls, New Zealand's smallest bird, making its tiny peeping sound. It's a story that captures something essential about this landscape, something that geological explanations alone can't quite reach. Both versions are true in their own way. The grinding of glaciers over millions of years, and the deliberate creation by an ancestor whose work shaped the world. A fantail lands on the wall near you, tail flicking as it hunts tiny insects stirred up by your presence. The sun grows warmer on your face as the morning advances. This little bird's ancestors were here when the Maori first arrived, following trails that wound through these mountains for generations, before any written history. The Punamu trails, greenstone routes, passed near here. Secret paths known only to certain families, who had the right to gather the precious stone from rivers and beaches further south. You can trace parts of these routes from where you sit. They followed river valleys where possible, crossed passes where necessary, always seeking the path of least resistance through this vertical landscape. The stone beneath your hands warms gradually in the sun as you imagine those traders walking these paths. They would have carried the greenstone on their backs, pieces worth more than gold to the Maori, who carved them into weapons, tools, and treasures that were passed down through generations. Some pieces had names, histories, stories of their own that grew with each passing. The sound of an engine breaks your contemplation, a tour bus navigating the switchbacks below. But it passes, and silence returns, deeper for having been interrupted. Water continues its distant conversation, a sound that hasn't changed in all the centuries humans have known this place. Captain James Cook sailed past this entrance twice without seeing it. You shade your eyes and look toward the Tasman Sea, trying to see what he saw, or didn't see. In 1770, on his first voyage, and again in 1773, the greatest navigator of his age missed Milford Sound completely. The sun shifts behind a cloud, and the temperature drops instantly on your skin, reminding you how changeable this place can be. From the sea, the entrance is hidden by overlapping peaks that create the illusion of an unbroken coastline. You can see it from here. How the mountains line up to hide the gap, like a stage set designed to deceive. Only when you're directly in front of it does the passage reveal itself, and even then, it looks more like a river mouth than the entrance to one of the world's deepest fiords. A Kia calls overhead, and you watch it wheel against the sky, bright green against blue. These birds would have been here when the first European finally found the entrance, a sealing captain named John Grono in 1812. You shift position on the rock, feeling the sun return to warm your face, and imagine those early sealers navigating these waters. They came for fur seals, whose pelts were valued in Chinese markets. The sound of water continues its constant whisper below, the same sound those sealers heard as they worked. In just a few decades, they nearly eliminated the entire seal population. Now, as you watch, you can see seals again on the rocks far below, tiny dark shapes basking in the sun. The population has recovered, slowly, over more than a century. Time moves differently here. The rocks beneath your hands have existed for 300 million years. The seals were nearly gone in 30 years, and have taken 100 to return. You notice the texture of the lichen under your fingers. Crusty, complex. Some patches orange, others grey-green. These lichens grow less than a millimetre per year. The patch beneath your hand could be older than European knowledge of this place. You stand and walk along the viewpoint, stopping where an information panel shows a cross-section of the sound. The breeze follows you, cool against your neck. Looking down at the dark water, you feel a subtle vertigo, knowing it continues down nearly 300 meters, deeper than the tallest building, deeper than the Tasman Sea outside the entrance. This depth was carved by glaciers during ice ages, when rivers of ice ground through these valleys with unimaginable force. But there's something else extraordinary here, something you can see if you know where to look. The forest around you is essentially the same as it was 80 million years ago. The southern beech trees, the tree ferns, the crown ferns. They're all descendants of species that lived when New Zealand was part of Gondwana, when dinosaurs walked through forests that looked almost exactly like this one. You walk to where the forest edge meets the viewpoint and place your hand on the trunk of a silver beech. The bark is rough, furrowed, covered in lichens and mosses that blur the boundary between tree and air. This individual tree might be 200 or 300 years old, but its lineage stretches back to the Cretaceous. Its ancestors provided shade for dinosaurs, survived the asteroid impact that ended the Mesozoic, watched the land break away from Gondwana, and drift north to become these islands. A Kia calls from somewhere above, that harsh cry that sounds almost like laughter. The sound echoes off the valley walls, multiplying into a chorus. These birds too are ancient residents, evolved from parrots that arrived millions of years ago and adapted to the mountains. They've watched the glaciers advance and retreat, seen the forests climb and descend with changing climates, observed the first humans arrive just 1,000 years ago, a blink in their species' history. The sun climbs higher, warming the rock where you return to sit. Your shadow has shifted since you arrived, marking time in the oldest way. Below, the sound is beginning to show more activity. A boat drawing a white line across the dark water, So small from here it looks like a toy. Donald Sutherland, the hermit of Milford, lived down there for 40 winters, 40 summers, from 1877 to 1919, in a hut he built himself near what's now called Bowen Falls. The forest slowly accepted his presence, the seasons turning around his solitary life. He was drawn by the isolation, the grandeur, and perhaps by the same thing that draws people still, the sense that this place exists in its own time. Sutherland discovered New Zealand's highest waterfall, later named for him, and guided early tourists through the valleys. But he also spent years in near-complete solitude, learning the moods of the sound, the patterns of weather, the secret places where the fiord reveals itself differently. The Homer Tunnel, that passage you drove through to get here, has its own layer in this story. The wind picks up, and you pull your layer closer, feeling the mountain air bite through the fabric. The tunnel was conceived in 1889, but not started until 1935, as a Depression-era work project. You can almost hear it, the ring of pickaxes on granite, echoing off the valley walls. Men worked through summer heat that made the rock burning to touch, and winter cold that numbed fingers around tool handles. The sound of a distant waterfall grows louder as the wind shifts, and you think of those workers listening to the same water sounds during their break times, sitting on rocks like this one, looking out at the same view. They lived in camps that clung to the mountainsides. In winter, avalanches could bury the entrance. You feel the warmth of sun on your face and imagine the opposite, the weight of snow, the darkness inside the half-finished tunnel, the candle flames that provided the only light. A fantail lands on the wall near you, tail flicking as it hunts, indifferent to human history. The tunnel took nearly 20 years to complete, finally opening to vehicles in 1954. Workers died in its construction, their names recorded on a memorial you passed without knowing. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the sun's warmth on your eyelids, hearing the layers of sound, water near and far, wind in grass, the fantail's tiny chirps. Each meter of that tunnel represents months of human effort. But here in the sun, with the ancient rocks warm beneath you, 20 years seems like nothing at all. You think about time differently here, where human history is such a thin layer on top of deep geological time. The Maori presence, perhaps 1,000 years. European exploration, 250 years. The road you drove, less than a century. But the rocks, the forests, the fundamental shape of the land, millions upon millions of years. The wind carries the scent of snow from invisible peaks, even in summer. A cloud passes over the sun, and you feel the temperature drop on your skin, maybe 5 degrees in an instant. You watch the cloud's shadow race across the sound below, turning the water from dark blue to black. This is Milford Sound's weather. It can rain for weeks without stopping, turning every cliff face into a waterfall. You can see the evidence even on this clear day. Water stains on the cliff faces reaching far above the current water level. Moss growing thicker and greener where the spray reaches during storms. The vegetation changes at different heights on the valley walls, marking flood levels like rings in a tree trunk mark years. Near the water, the plants are those that can survive being drenched. Higher up, where you sit, the plants are alpine, adapted to wind and cold. but needing less constant water. The cloud passes, and warmth floods back. You notice how your body relaxes with the return of sun. Shoulders dropping, breath deepening. Far below, the water of the sound holds both salt from the sea and fresh water from rain and rivers. The fresh water, being lighter, sits on top, creating a dark layer that blocks light from reaching the depths. In this perpetual twilight, black coral grows, usually found only in deep ocean trenches, but here, tricked by the darkness into thinking it's in the deep sea. You pull out the simple lunch you packed: a sandwich, an apple, water that tastes somehow better here, sharper, more essential. As you eat, you notice the small things that continue the story. A tiny alpine plant tucked into a crevice, descendant of species that survived ice ages on peaks that stood above the glaciers. The steady sound of water, unchanging, eternal. Everything here is connected through time. The ancient rocks, the Gondwanan forests, the Maori trails, Cook's missed discoveries, the hermit's solitude, the tunnel builder's determination. Each story layered on the last, none replacing what came before. All of them present simultaneously, if you know how to look. The sun warms your shoulders as you sit with these layers of history. The afternoon is advancing, and you know you should continue your journey. But you sit a moment longer, letting all these stories settle into your understanding. A bellbird sings from the forest edge, its liquid notes carrying across the silence. This might be the descendant of birds that sang for Sutherland, for Maori traders, for no one at all through countless centuries. You stand slowly, brushing dust from your clothes, taking one last look at the sound spread below. The water remains perfectly still, holding the reflections of mountains like memories. Your muscles have stiffened slightly from sitting, and it feels good to stretch, to feel your body preparing to move again. Walking back to your car, you pause at the forest edge one more time. These trees will be here long after you've gone, long after the road has crumbled, possibly long after humans have passed from this land. They're not waiting for anything, not marking time. They're simply being, as they have been for millions of years. The wind moves through their branches with a sound like breathing. You carry these stories with you as you return to the car, not as weight, but as depth, as layers of understanding that make the landscape richer. The engine starts, breaking the spell of silence, but the stories remain. They're written in every stone, every tree, every drop of water falling from these ancient cliffs. The road continues ahead, winding down toward the sound itself, where you'll walk among these stories rather than viewing them from above. But this pause, this moment of contemplation at the viewpoint, has given you a deeper understanding of this place. The landscape holds more meaning now, each rock and tree carrying its history visible to you. The road descends in gentle curves towards sea level, each switchback revealing a new angle of the sound. You drive slowly, windows down, letting the mountain air flow through the car. It carries the scent of wet stone and forest, growing damper and greener as you lose altitude. The temperature rises slightly with each turn. The deep valley holds warmth like a cupped hand. The small settlement at the base of Milford Sound appears almost suddenly, a cluster of buildings that seems impossibly tiny against the scale of the surrounding mountains. You park and walk toward the wharf, where several boats wait at their moorings, their white hulls bright against the dark water. The transition from mountain viewpoint to sea level has changed everything. What looked small and distant from above now towers overhead. Mitre Peak rising straight from the water like a wall built by giants. You board one of the smaller vessels, choosing a seat on the open deck despite the cool breeze. The boat holds maybe 30 people, but it's early afternoon and less crowded than the morning cruises. The engine starts with a low rumble that you feel through the deck, a vibration that travels up through your feet and settles somewhere in your chest. As the boat pulls away from the dock, you watch the land recede slowly, understanding for the first time the true scale of this place. The water is dark as polished greenstone, so dark you can't see more than a meter below the surface. This darkness comes from the layer of fresh water that sits on top of the salt water, tannin-stained runoff from the forests above, creating what marine biologists call a deep water emergence. Species that normally live hundreds of meters down can survive here at depths of just 30 meters, tricked by the perpetual twilight into thinking they're in the deep ocean. Mitre Peak grows larger as you approach, its reflection creating a perfect twin in the still water. The boat's wake disturbs this mirror, sending ripples across the mountain's reflected face. But the image reforms as soon as the water settles. You lean against the rail, feeling the cool metal under your palms, watching the hypnotic pattern of disturbed and reformed reflections. A waterfall appears on the port side. Not the thin ribbons you saw from above, but a proper cascade. Stirling Falls, dropping 155 meters in 2 stages. The captain's voice comes over the speakers, calm and informative, mentioning that after heavy rain, hundreds of temporary waterfalls appear on these cliffs. You can see the evidence. Dark water stains on the rock faces, where ephemeral falls run during storms. The permanent waterfalls have carved deep grooves in the cliff faces, centuries of water following the same path, patient and persistent. The boat slows near a rocky outcrop, and the engine drops to an idle. The smell reaches you immediately, fishy, rich with guano, unmistakably a seal colony. On the rocks, fur seals bask in the afternoon sun, their dark bodies looking like smooth boulders until one lifts its head or shifts position. They seem entirely unbothered by your presence, some sleeping so deeply their whiskers twitch with dreams, others watching the boat with mild curiosity. A young pup practices swimming in a protected pool, its movements playful and uncoordinated, learning the skills it will need in the open ocean. The air here carries salt and seaweed, mixed with the green scent from the forests above and the faint diesel from the idling engine. Every breath tastes slightly of the sea. You watch one seal scratch itself luxuriously with a flipper, its flexibility seemingly impossible, before settling back onto its rock with a satisfied huff that you can hear even over the engine's idle. The boat moves on, deeper into the sound. The walls grow even steeper, near vertical in places, and you have to tilt your head back to see where rock meets sky. Vegetation clings to these extreme angles, trees growing from cracks in vertical faces, ferns sprouting from ledges no wider than your hand. The tenacity of life here is overwhelming. Every possible surface hosts something growing, reaching for light, finding water, surviving. Near Copper Point, the captain cuts the engine entirely. The sudden silence is profound. Not empty, but full of small sounds you couldn't hear before. Water lapping against the hull, the distant crash of a waterfall. A bird calling from the forest that seems impossibly far above. The boat drifts slowly, and you close your eyes, letting these sounds create their own map of the space around you. If you look carefully near the cliff face, the captain says quietly, you might spot tawaki, Fiordland crested penguins. You scan the rocks, and the smell reaches you first. Fishy, guano-rich, unmistakably the scent of a seabird colony. Then you see one, smaller than you expected, with distinctive yellow eyebrow stripes, standing perfectly still on a ledge just above the waterline. The air is cooler here in the shadow of the cliff, and you pull your layer closer as you watch. Another penguin appears from the water, hopping onto the rocks with surprising agility. These are among the world's rarest penguins, found only in these remote fiords and coastlines. The captain mentions that locals have seen the same individuals return to the exact same ledges for years, recognizing them by small variations in their crest patterns. Water drips from the newly emerged bird, each drop catching the light before returning to the sea. The boat continues its slow journey toward the Sound's mouth, where it meets the Tasman Sea. Here, the water changes color, from the dark green-black of the inner Sound to a lighter blue where ocean water mixes in. The junction is visible as a distinct line in the water, two different worlds meeting and mingling. Seabirds wheel overhead, petrels and shearwaters that spend most of their lives at sea, coming to these cliffs only to nest. At the Sound's entrance, you can finally understand why Cook missed it. From this angle, looking out to sea, the left peak's dark face creates what looks like a continuous cliff wall, while the right mountain overlaps behind it, hiding the gap completely. The captain cuts the engine for a moment, and in the quiet you can hear the ocean swell, meeting the calmer Sound water. A gentle slapping where two different rhythms meet. The spray from the boat's movement doesn't create rainbows here, but does something else. It catches the late light and seems to hold it for a moment before falling back to the sea, like scattered drops of liquid gold. The boat turns back toward the inner Sound, and you feel the temperature change as you re-enter the shelter of the mountains. The sun has moved lower, changing the light quality. What was harsh and bright earlier has become golden and soft. The waterfalls catch this light, turning from silver to gold, their spray creating a fine mist that cools your face when the boat passes close. Back at the wharf, you disembark slowly, the solid wood of the dock feeling strange beneath your feet after an hour of gentle rocking. Your legs need a moment to remember stillness. There's a slight unsteadiness, as if the water's rhythm has settled into your bones. Other passengers move past you toward the parking area, but you stand at the rail for a moment longer, hands still feeling the phantom vibration of the boat's engine. The late afternoon sun warms your shoulders, and you stretch slowly, feeling muscles release from the tension of sitting. Your body holds the journey, salt dried on your skin from the spray, the slight stiffness in your neck from looking up at those near vertical cliff faces. The air here smells different than it did on the water. Less salt, more forest, with undertones of diesel from the boats and the earthy scent of the shoreline at low tide. You walk to your car but don't get in. The afternoon light has that particular quality that makes everything glow from within, and your body still holds just enough energy, just enough curiosity, for a small exploration. A sign catches your eye. Milford track start, 10 minutes. The decision forms slowly, without urgency. Not a plan, but a gentle pull, like the tide drawing you forward. The path leads along the shoreline initially, gravel crunching softly under your feet. You can still hear the boats at their moorings, their hulls creaking gently, but the sounds fade as the trail curves inland. Then, the forest entrance appears. A doorway between two massive beech trees, and you step through. The transition is immediate and complete. From open sky to green ceiling, from broad views to intimate spaces. The temperature drops several degrees, and the air becomes thick with moisture and the scent of decomposition and growth. Your breathing changes instantly, becoming deeper, as if the forest air is heavier, more substantial than what you've been breathing outside. This is the beginning of the Milford Track, the path that drew early explorers into Fiordland's heart. You're not attempting the full 53-kilometre journey. That takes days and requires preparation. But even a short walk here offers immersion in one of Earth's last temperate rainforests. The trail is soft underfoot, centuries of fallen leaves creating a natural carpet. Every surface is covered in moss. The trees, the rocks, even other plants host these tiny forests within forests. You run your hand along a tree trunk and feel the moss compress under your fingers, moisture releasing with the pressure. It's like touching something between plant and sponge, neither fully solid nor liquid. The sound here is different from anywhere else. Not silence, but a constant, gentle percussion of water. Drops fall from leaves at irregular intervals, creating a random rhythm that never quite becomes predictable. Somewhere to your left, hidden by ferns and moss, a stream runs over rocks with a constant whisper. High above, where you can't see, larger water flows, the hanging valleys that feed the waterfalls you saw from the boat. You stop where a massive tree has fallen across the trail, its root system exposed like a wall of earth and twisted wood. Already, new life has colonized this fallen giant. Ferns grow from its trunk, moss covers every surface, and tiny seedlings of what will become massive trees have taken root in the decomposing wood. The cycle is visible here. Death becoming life, the forest feeding itself. A rifleman bird flits past, so small and quick you almost miss it. New Zealand's smallest bird, weighing less than a coin, but its high-pitched call carries through the forest. You stand still, and it returns, hunting insects in the bark of nearby trees, seemingly unafraid of your presence. Its Maori name is Tititi Pounamu, a word that sounds like its call. Further along, the trail crosses a small creek on a simple wooden bridge. You stop in the middle, looking down at water so clear it seems like air, with stones floating in it. The stones are all colours: grey granite, green serpentine, white quartz, rounded smooth by water's patient work. Small native fish dart between the stones, their movements so quick they seem to teleport rather than swim. The forest creates its own weather here. Even on this clear day, a fine mist drifts through the trees. Whether from waterfalls or simple condensation is impossible to tell. It gives everything a soft focus, like looking through silk. The light filters through in beams where the canopy opens slightly, illuminating patches of forest floor in brilliant green, before moving on as the sun shifts. The air is so thick with moisture you can taste it, green and alive, like breathing through wet silk. You find a moss-covered boulder beside the trail and sit, letting the forest settle around you. At first it seems quiet, but as your ears adjust, layers of sound emerge. Birds call from different distances. Water drips and flows and falls. Wind moves through leaves at different heights, each level creating its own note. Your watch becomes irrelevant here, your body settling into forest rhythm instead of human time. It could be minutes or an hour that you sit. There's no way to tell, and no need to know. The moss beneath you is soft and slightly damp, slowly conforming to your shape, creating a perfect cradle. You notice tiny details. A spider web jeweled with moisture that trembles with each breath of wind. A fern frond unfurling in a perfect spiral that follows mathematics older than thought. The way bark patterns change where a tree trunk meets the ground, becoming more elaborate, like the tree is gathering its strength. Eventually, reluctantly, you stand and begin the walk back. The trail looks different in reverse. Features you didn't notice before become prominent. The light has shifted to illuminate different scenes. You move slowly, in no hurry to leave this green world. As you emerge from the forest, the open sky seems impossibly bright and wide. The sound spreads before you again, but now you know it differently. From water level, from seal's eye view, from inside the forest that clothes its walls. Each perspective has added a layer to your understanding. The sun is low now, turning Mitre Peak into a golden monument. The day visitors have mostly departed, leaving the sound to return to its evening quiet. You stand at the forest edge for a moment, looking back at the darkness between the trees, then forward to the water that holds the last light of day. Tomorrow, you'll leave this place, drive back through the Homer Tunnel, and return to the world beyond these mountains. But for now, you're still here, held between forest and fiord, carrying the afternoon's wonders in your body, the boat's gentle rocking still present in your inner ear, the moss's soft compression remembered in your palms, the forest's green breath still filling your lungs. The sound of water continues its eternal conversation, neither beginning nor ending, just continuing as it has for millennia. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with air that carries everything: salt from the sea, dampness from the forest, the faint sweetness of flowering rata somewhere high on the cliffs. You carry the afternoon in your body now, salt dried on your skin from the boat spray, moss moisture in your clothes from the forest. The phantom sensation of the boat's gentle rocking still present when you stand perfectly still. These sensations will fade by tomorrow, but for now, they're as real as the mountains themselves, proof of your passage through this place, where water and land meet in such dramatic embrace. The light continues to fade, gold deepening to amber, amber to rose. Soon it will be time to return to your accommodation, to rest and let the day settle into memory. But not yet. For now, you simply stand and watch as Milford Sound prepares for night, as it has every evening for countless millennia, patient and eternal as the mountains that hold it. The settlement has quieted as evening approaches. You can hear the small sounds of the place preparing for night, a door closing softly, the clink of dishes being washed in the lodge kitchen, low voices carrying on the still air, the steady hum of a generator somewhere behind the buildings. Most day visitors have departed on their buses back to Teanau or Queenstown, leaving Milford Sound to those who stay overnight. A handful of souls who know that the fjord reveals different faces in the changing light. You walk past the small lodge and camping area, following a narrow path that leads toward the shore. The gravel crunches softly under your feet, then gives way to harder packed earth. These human sounds fade as you walk, replaced gradually by the evening sounds of the shore. Small waves lapping, wind moving through coastal grasses, the first tentative calls of night birds. The air has shifted in that particular way of mountain evenings. The warmth of afternoon dissipates quickly here, replaced by a coolness that slides down from the peaks like invisible water. You feel it first on your exposed hands and face, a gentle prickling that makes you aware of your skin. You pull your jacket closer, appreciating its weight and warmth. The temperature must have dropped 5 degrees in the last hour, and the slight dampness in the evening air makes it feel cooler still. The path opens onto a small beach of dark stones, rounded smooth by centuries of waves. The transition under your feet is immediate, from firm earth to shifting pebbles that click and settle with each step. This isn't the dramatic viewpoint where tourists gather for photos, but a quieter place where the sound opens toward the sea. A large driftwood log, bleached pale by salt and sun, provides a perfect seat. You run your palm along its surface first, smooth where countless hands and bodies have polished it, still rough with salt crystals in the crevices, warm from the day's sun but cooling quickly in the evening air. It's solid, dry, positioned to face both the inner sound and the opening to the Tasman Sea. As you settle onto the log, you notice how your body has changed through the day. Your muscles carry a pleasant tiredness from walking. Your skin holds the memory of sun and spray. The phantom sensation of the boat's rocking has finally faded, replaced by a deep stillness. You're completely present now, here at the junction where river meets sea, where one of the world's most dramatic landscapes softens into evening. The water before you has transformed. Gone are the choppy wavelets stirred by afternoon wind. The surface has become perfectly still, so smooth it looks like dark silk stretched between the mountains. This stillness happens sometimes in the evening here, when the day winds die and the night winds haven't yet begun. A pause between breaths, when the fiord holds perfectly still. The sun has dropped behind the western peaks, but its light hasn't disappeared. Instead, it reflects off high clouds and snowfields, creating a light show that needs no direct source. Rahotu, what Captain Cook would later name Mitre Peak, begins its evening transformation directly across from you. The granite that looked dark and forbidding at noon now glows. First gold, then amber, then a pink so delicate it seems impossible that solid rock could hold such color. You pick up a smooth stone from beside the log, feeling its weight and coolness in your palm. It's dark granite, shot through with veins of white quartz, a piece of the mountains worn smooth by water. You turn it over slowly, thumb finding the slight depression that fits perfectly, as if this stone was meant to be held. The simple act of holding it grounds you, connects you to this place in a tangible way. A sound draws your attention, a gentle lapping that wasn't there before. The tide is turning, the sea beginning its twice-daily conversation with the fiord. The waves are tiny, barely ripples, but in the perfect stillness they sound clearly. Each one makes a slightly different sound as it meets the stones. Some whisper, some sigh. Some make a gentle clicking as they move pebbles against each other. Above, the sky begins its own transformation. The blue deepens through shades you have no names for. Not quite purple, not quite indigo. Something between and beyond both. The first star appears, so suddenly you wonder if it was always there, waiting for the sky to darken enough to reveal it. Then another, and another, until you realize the sky is full of stars that were always there, hidden by daylight. A bird calls from the forest behind you. 2 notes, haunting and clear. More pork, it seems to say, giving the roo-roo owl its English name, though some iwi call it cuckoo for the different sound it makes. The call comes again, from a different tree, as if the birds are marking territory with sound. In Maori tradition, the roo-roo can be a watchful guardian or a messenger, depending on the nature of its call. Tonight the calls sound peaceful, contemplative, adding to rather than disturbing the evening quiet. The temperature continues to drop, and with it comes a new scent on the air. Snow. Even in summer, snow persists on the highest peaks, and the evening air carries its particular smell down into the valley. It's clean and sharp, almost metallic, mixing with the salt smell from the sea and the green scent from the forest. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with this complex mixture, feeling it cool you from the inside. The light on Rahotu has shifted again, the pink giving way to purple, then to a deep blue that makes the mountain look like it's carved from shadow. But even as the peak darkens, its reflection in the still water holds the last light, creating a ghost mountain that glows beneath the surface. You watch this reflected peak fade gradually, reluctant to let go of the day. A splash in the water draws your eye. Something has disturbed the perfect mirror. Ripples spread in concentric circles, and you wait, watching. There, a sleek head emerges, whiskers catching the fading light. A seal, fishing in the evening calm. It looks at you for a moment, dark eyes curious but unafraid, before slipping beneath the surface again. The ripples from its passage take a long time to settle, and you watch each one, hypnotized by the pattern. Your hands have found a rhythm with the stone, turning it over and over, thumb finding that perfect depression each time. It's become a meditation without meaning to be, just the simple pleasure of smooth stone against skin, the weight of it, the way it holds the day's warmth longer than the air around it. The stars are multiplying now, the sky revealing its full evening glory. Without the light pollution of cities, the Milky Way emerges, a river of light across the darkness, so bright here that it casts the faintest shadow. You lean back slightly, neck craning to take in the full sweep of it. There's the Southern Cross, that constellation that guided Polynesian navigators to these islands, its 4 bright stars and 2 pointers clear against the darkness. Near it, the jewel box cluster sparkles with coloured stars, blue, orange, white, visible to the naked eye here in the clear mountain air. If it were winter, you'd see Matariki rising, the Pleiades that mark the Maori New Year. But tonight, in this season, different stars tell their own stories across the southern sky. The moorpork calls again, closer now. You can hear the rustle of wings, the small sounds of a night hunter preparing for its work. Other nocturnal sounds begin, the high ping of bats using echolocation, the rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth behind you. The day shift is ending, the night shift beginning, and you're sitting at the boundary between them. The water has become a perfect mirror for the stars, each one reflected so clearly you could believe you're suspended between 2 skies. When you move your head, the reflected stars shimmer and dance, then settle back into stillness. It's disorienting and calming simultaneously. This sense of floating between heaven and earth, held by nothing more than a driftwood log and the solid earth beneath it. You realize you've been sitting for longer than planned. Your body has stiffened slightly, and you shift position, feeling joints protest gently before settling into new arrangements. But you're not ready to leave yet. This transition time, this edge between day and night, feels too precious to abandon. The tide has risen slightly, the waves reaching stones that were dry when you arrived. The sound has changed, less clicking, more sighing, as water meets water rather than stone. You can smell the difference too. More seaweed, more salt. The particular smell of the intertidal zone revealing itself. A breeze stirs, so gentle you barely feel it, but the water responds immediately. The perfect mirror breaks into 1,000 pieces, each reflecting a different star, creating a field of moving light. Then the breeze passes, and slowly, patiently, the water rebuilds its mirror. You watch this happen several times, each disturbance and recovery, like watching the fiord breathe. The cold is real now, no longer gentle but insistent. You pull your jacket's hood up, creating a small cave of warmth around your face. Your breath becomes visible, small clouds that drift and disappear. But still you sit, unwilling to break this spell, to leave this threshold place where day becomes night, where land meets sea, where your brief evening meets the mountain's patient centuries. Tomorrow you'll return to the world of schedules and destinations. You'll drive back through the Homer Tunnel, descend from these mountains, return to places where stars hide behind artificial light. But tonight, you have this perfect stillness, this gradual darkening, this sense of being held by the vast quiet of mountains and sea. The stone in your hand has cooled to match the air temperature. You stand slowly, joints creaking slightly, and walk to the water's edge. For a moment you hold the stone, feeling its weight one last time. Then place it gently among its fellows at the waterline. Tomorrow the tide will move it. Next week it might be somewhere else entirely, continuing its slow journey from mountain to sea. You turn back toward the settlement, where a few windows glow with warm light. The path is harder to see now, but your feet remember the way. The pebbles shift and click under your steps, then give way to packed earth, then to gravel as you near the buildings. Each surface tells you where you are, guides you back. Behind you, the water continues its gentle conversation with the shore. Above, stars continue their steady light. And somewhere in the forest, the moorpork calls one more time, a sound that seems to say, "Rest now. Rest now. The mountains will still be here tomorrow." The settlement is quiet as you pass through. Most windows are dark, their occupants already settled for the night. You move quietly too, not wanting to disturb this peace. The generator still hums its steady note, a mechanical lullaby that will continue through the night. Your accommodation waits, simple, warm, a shelter at the edge of the world. As you reach for the door, you pause one last time, looking back toward the sound. You can't see it now, but you can feel it, the presence of all that water, all those mountains, all that ancient patience. Tomorrow will bring its own rhythms, its own requirements, but tonight has given you this perfect winding down, this gentle transition from day into night, from movement into stillness, from the world's noise into Fiordland's vast quiet. The door closes softly behind you, and the night continues its slow turning toward dawn.